Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is my maybe fifth take trying to start things off. It always takes me quite a few takes to just introduce things. So I'm just gonna go and edit and hope it sounds good. All right, so before we start, I do need to tell you that this is a sponsored video. I am being paid to add my commentary about specifically the Yume Midnight, which I'm pointing off camera like you can see. I'm looking at the box on a chair there. The website hifigo.com is the sponsor for today's video, and they sent me to borrow, not to keep, the Yume Midnight. So I am being paid some amount of money to review it. Please be skeptical of any opinions I express over it, okay? But that being said, I do provide sound demos so you guys can make some judgments for yourself as well. Now, there are other items in this video that were given to me as free samples, not being paid to review anything else, but Olina, Lea, and probably others were given to me for free from Linsol. So be aware of that potential bias factor as well. Now, let's talk how we thought that sounded. Let's get right to the point. The Olina was, of the three headliners today, the Olina was probably my favorite so far. It has this mixture of the smoothness of something like the Midnight with a little bit more openness sounding to it, of something like the Lea is sounding like it's trying to be. But the Lea is such a... There's something wrong with the Lea, right? Like the channel, it sounds like you would have thought at home that I messed something up in my recording rig. I thought I messed something up in my recording rig. I tried recording it 4, maybe 5 different times, the Lea. And every time I just tried pushing them into the dummy's ears in different ways and thinking, oh, maybe it was the foam tips. Maybe I was pushing them too far up the nozzle or not far enough. And maybe I wasn't pushing them far enough in the canal or not far enough. I tried every permutation, and then I finally was like sick of it. I was like, you know what, let me just put these in my ears. Oh God. And I realized it's the earphones. And I'm like, I'm not sure if they Linsol sent me a unit that happened to be defective from the manufacturer, or which could be. It's only a $25 set, so maybe it's the manufacturer's fault. Or maybe I pushed the mics in too hard on my first recording and it messed it up. I just don't know. It's really unfortunate. If Linsol wants to send me another set just to see for austerity, you know, and I can revisit it in a future video, fine. But today I'm going to present to you what I received. And because I think this is important to know as a community. You know, does anybody else at home have a Lea that sounds unreliable in the channel balance? If you do, please type something in the comments if you hear something kind of wonky with your Lea. It is only $25, so maybe it is the fault of the product. I don't know. I just don't know. In any case, the Midnight, what did I think of that? The Midnight was this ultra buttery smooth sound. Not the best, smoothest sound I think I've heard. The Dunu SA6 still holds that high bar for me. I wish I still had that set to compare with today, but the recording I had was not the best that I wanted it to be, so I hope to get my hands on those again someday. But for today, I have a lot of other comparisons ready to go. So let's take a look. Let's bring in the top 2 budget kings, the Melee and the Tinhifi T3 Plus. I think people are interested in those two a lot. Okay, wow. That Lea, we got to start taking that out of some of these demo comparisons, because it's almost like useless to try to compare it too much, right? It just sounds kind of broken. Unfortunate. I feel like you can get something from it, but it's not much. It's this huge looming variable of the fact that it could be broken. It's just hard to say anything. Now, the Melee and the T3 Plus came in very interesting, because those are like the budget kings. Those are like $50, $70, something like that each. And depending on your tastes, I think you could prefer the Melee over everything else so far. It just depends on whether or not you like it. We're getting into when you get into stuff that's this good, especially for the price, it really gets into subjective territory. Like, do you personally just like how it happens to jive with the music being presented to you more than something else? The Melee has that soft, lush thing going on that the Melee is always known to have, and yet it does have more impact. It has more strength and certainty about what it's trying to do. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? No, I genuinely just feel like the Melee is hitting with more resounding impact in some areas, compared to at least the Midnight, which is really smoothened out. And the Olina sounds like it's not as deep hitting, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't sound like the Olina has as much bass as the Melee does. And the T3 Plus, likewise, it comes in sounding pretty impressive. In this particular track, it almost sounds sort of similar, up this similar like kind of flavor tree as the Olina. It's kind of like you got the Olina and the T3 Plus somewhere here in a more excited, open sounding territory. You've got the Midnight, which is like way down here in the midnight zone. Like, it's literally called Midnight. Like, it sounds like it's trying to be dark, and the name implies it. It's well named. And it's not bad for it. It's just different. It's just different. It's very interesting, though. I think, could be biased, but it sounds nice. So you got the T3 Plus and Olina up here and somewhere bright and open sounding. You got the Midnight somewhere down here in this kind of buttery smooth, deep kind of feel, but not impactful, just kind of like smooth and down low. And then you got the Lea, which is like over there being broken and repaired somewhere. And then the Melee is like, it's more familiar to what the Midnight is doing, because it gives you this general sense of warmth that the Midnight definitely does, but it ventures closer towards the T3 Plus and Olina a lot more than I would have expected. It's borrowing the bass impact from that low end, and it's venturing toward that high end, if that makes sense. The Melee is an interestingly nice balance of different flavors. Let's keep listening to something with more bass impact and see if that elucidates any more insight. Wow, I'm so articulate today.
I see your face in the crowd, but you don't seem so far away. The only thing between us is empty space, empty space. Even when the music is loud, I'd rather be no other place than here with you now, here with you now. here with you now. See your face in the crowd, but you don't seem so far away. The only thing between us is empty space, empty space. Even when the music is loud, I'd rather be no other place. Here with you now, here with you now. Other place, here with you now. Here with you. Rather be no other place than here with you now. Rather be no other place than here with you. I see your face in the crowd, but you don't seem so far away. The only thing between us is empty space, empty space. Even when the music is loud, I'd rather be no other place. Here with you now, here with you now. Here with you now.
Okay, sorry to ruin everyone's day of hopes and dreams for most of this gear that you were considering, but that OH10, that Obsidian, there's a reason why I put that as an S ranked on my ranking list. Because of that. You can't deny it. It sounds so much more open suddenly when it comes on against almost anything. It's like you go from the Midnight Olina. It's like Midnight Olina Melee. Interesting. What are the differences? Oh, the Melee's doing pretty well. It sounds pretty like impactful. The male vocals have this strong presence to them. The Midnight is very smooth. It's different, but it's good. The Olina is a little bit more open, a little bit more exciting. And then the Obsidian comes along, the OH10, and it's like, I am the most impactful and open. I am the most clear and authentic to how the timbre should sound. And it's like, fair enough. Fair enough. That's spoiler alert. I don't prefer any of these sponsored products or freebies over my previous favorite. Okay, I'm going to continue to talk about these, and I'm going to show the rest of the video how they compare with each other. You know, because you might personally have an opinion that's different than me, but me personally, OH10 all the way. That's the one I prefer the most. I prefer it for its sheer bass presence without sounding muddy at all. It has great impact without sacrificing any clarity. It's all there. You might, although the electronic music like this track can be pretty rough on the ears, if you thought that that one synthetic sound that played a lot towards the end, that kind of like almost crashy sound, like that kept happening, might have been too harsh on the OH10, you might have found relief on something like the Melee. The Melee was the most relieving when it comes to fatiguing music. So there are positives to find there. And if that just jives with you, who am I to say that your opinion is worse than mine? That doesn't make any sense. This is opinion territory we are all in right now together, okay? My opinion is OH10. Your opinion may be any one of those other things for X, Y, or Z reasons that you heard at home. Let's keep listening though. Let's go back to the T3 Plus. Let's do another electronic track, similar top contenders now. Let's look at the Olina, the Yume Midnight, the T3 Plus, and the Obsidian to see how those all stack. Let's focus in on those. Okay, now I think I've said this before in a past video, but the T3 Plus does sound like it's barking up a very similar tree as the OH10, the Obsidian. It almost sounds like its baby brother that is gonna grow up someday to be the Obsidian. It's just lacking a little bit of that refinement. When you go from the T3 Plus to the Obsidian, to me, it's a very clear upgrade path. There's a reason why the T3 Plus is like the top of the B ranks, like B+++, and not quite knocking into the A and S ranks. It's because there's something there that I think is better, pretty much. And it's like when you hear the difference, you're like, yes, yes, please, sign me up for the OH10. Make me pay more than double the price, $160 versus $70, because it's worth it. If you're willing to spend $150 on AirPods or something else, spend $160 instead on the OH10. They sound delicious. Now, the Olina and the Midnight were interesting. On that one in particular, you did hear how the Midnight sounded just a slight, it was like, the Midnight sounded like it had a different timbre, right? It sounded like the voicing of those sounds was different. Like it wasn't the same instruments almost. It sounded like it was intentionally trying to add wonk to things, but in a way that like it didn't upset me, especially if you're just listening to the Midnight by itself in your ears for a long time. You're just like riding the Midnight wave, the Midnight train. It does have a smooth nature to it. Again, I could be biased. Maybe I'm going into this wanting to find positives because I'm being paid to talk about it. But I've been paid and given free samples of stuff in the past that I've absolutely said like, nah, I don't like this. And I can't help myself. I feel like I enjoy the Midnight. Would I place it above the OH10? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Even though the Midnight is comparably priced, maybe even just a tad bit more expensive. Was it $200? I can't remember my own pricing on the video. The Obsidian really is just outshining everything to me. The Olina is the last one in that demo. The Olina is interesting though. The interesting thing about the Olina is that it has this kind of compromise with all these different situations. You've got the Obsidian, which is just like stellar, authentic, impressive sound. Then you've got the T3 Plus, which is like trying to bark up that tree. And then you have the Midnight, which is super buttery smooth. And somewhere in between, floating above them somewhere, is the Olina. I can't quite put my finger on it just yet, but it sounds like it's trying to be like a first cousin of the T3 Plus OH10 line, but it's more balanced in some areas. It's not as impactful. It's not trying to be. It's not grabbing me the same way the OH10 does. It's good, don't get me wrong. I would still rate it like a B+ at the least. But it's just interesting how close you can get to it with a T3 Plus already at 70. And then if you go to the OH10, you're just enjoying something completely different. Okay, now I'm going to introduce to you the real best of the best. Let's get straight to the end goal here. Let's see how all these hype train things compare to what is, in my book, the best.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angel. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on the streets 'cause she's my companion. knows who I am. She sees my good deeds and she kisses me windy. And I never worry, now that is a lie. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to believe that there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love to see that she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, 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 yeah, yeah. Love me, I say, yeah, yeah. One time. Is where I drew some blood. I could not get enough. Forgot about my love. I gave my life away. Where I stay.
You see what I did there? I didn't tell you I was going to do that. So I snuck in the Oxygen at the very end because, guys, people say that it has the same driver, and I believe that. But there's much more to designing an earphone than the driver being the same as another earphone. There's how it fits inside the chassis, or how the nozzle is shaped. Is it a longer nozzle, shorter nozzle, wide, narrow? You know, what's the filter on it? You know, all of this stuff goes into play, and the Oxygen sounds decidedly warmer than the Olina, which is supposed to have the same driver. So the Olina and Oxygen are not the same. If you were hoping to get the Oxygen sound, the exact same sound from the Oxygen, which is like $270, in the Olina, you're not going to get it at $100. You're not. It's tuned different to my ear. Unless I'm terribly messing something up and I have error, and I will own up to that. If anybody wants to say, hey, you totally messed that up, those sound the same, please leave a comment. If BGGAR, Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews, the guy who tuned the Olina, wants to tell me in a private chat or comment, either way, it's fine by me, that I'm missing something, please do. Please do. Okay, I want this to be a discussion with all voices from all ends of things, okay? I'm not trying to be like full of it, you know, because I stand on a pedestal here above all of you guys. I'm just listening to some stuff and sharing my commentary. That's all this really is. Anyway, So the Olina, interestingly, even though it's $100 and sounds different, I prefer the Olina over the Oxygen personally. Okay, even though it's almost a third the price, I like what BGGAR did to it. I like how he tuned it. He brought out more excitement from it. The Olina so far is honestly a good deal for $100, a great deal. It competes well with the T3 Plus, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I know some people have a problem with me comparing more expensive gear to cheaper gear sometimes, but I'm going to do that anyway. If I hear something that's cheap sound good, I'm going to compare it to the more expensive stuff. I can't help myself. Everybody wants to know that kind of comparison too, so I'm going to show it. And the T3 Plus at $70 to me still is one of the best under a couple hundred, except for things like the OH10 and Timeless. But the Olina at 100, the T3 Plus at 70, that's neck and neck for me. That is not really clear. It's not a clear victor. It's just going to be like you guys listening at home to the demo, to both of them. Which one do you, from this review, do you prefer? I can't tell you which one you're going to prefer. I still have to think about which one I prefer. I have to stew on this. I have to listen to this them some more in my own ears and before I put in my rankings. Other than that, the other two, the Mest and the Obsidian that were in that demo just now, the Mest is still really just my favorite above everything else. The Obsidian is still my favorite above all the other ones presented. I still prefer the Obsidian over the Oxygen, clearly, above the Olina, above the T3 Plus, all of it. I would still say my personal recommendation for under $200 in anything in this video is going to be the OH10. It happens all the time that people come away with different conclusions than me. It's totally fine. This is like a group discussion, you know what I mean? Now that we're more familiar with all these different sounds, generally speaking, let's shift over to specific other genres like female singer and acoustics. Let's see how they compare to each other there.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tells a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt. I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, the feelings disappear. You are someone else. I am still right here. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt. If I could start again, a million miles away, I will keep myself. I would find a way.
Now, I know there was a lot in that one demo clip, so you might need to go back and listen again to remember these things. But the T3 Plus was very strong as well. But I do think in this particular example, the Olina maybe ever just so barely might have edged it out. I don't know if that's bias talking. It could be. I need to listen to those two sets more before I put an official rank in my ranking list. This is one of the few times, one of the rare times that I am not immediately drawn to a conclusion of what letter grade I want to assign each of these things. There's just so much in my head right now. As you guys at home are probably as well. The one that really throws me off is the Yume Midnight from Seeaudio. I'm just not sure yet what to make of my preferences for the Midnight. I could see it being an A-class IEM for a lot of people. I genuinely think a lot of people are going to be drawn to that sound signature. But is it for me yet? I just don't know. I think it's probably going to be, for me, I think it's actually going to be a flat B, probably not even a B plus to compete with the T3 Plus and other things up there, like the Melee. I think I might actually prefer the Melee over the Midnight. The Melee has just a little bit more impact, a little bit more thump in certain places that I kind of like, a little more lusciousness. The Midnight is probably my most favorite critical tuned set to date. But if I had to keep a scorecard of which, tuner I prefer most of the time, I'm leaning more towards Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews, BGGAR, on this one, on the Melee and the Olina. But the Midnight is really quite interesting. I could come around. I really could come around to it. I think I just need more time. Maybe it just hurts that I know that DuNu SA6 exists. And I know that if I could choose between the DuNu SA6 version of Buttery Smooth versus the Midnight, I would pick the DuNu SA6. So it's not going to beat that. It's not going to be like A plus or S, the Midnight. But I could see it on my rankings probably ending up somewhere in the B or B plus range, but just below the Melee so far. I'm not sure. Okay. All right, let's play a couple more tracks before we call it a day. Just see if there's anything else we can get after we've really gained some experience now. Let's use that gauge that we've acquired through all this listening to just kind of put some nails in some coffins. See what we really think on these last couple of tracks.
Stay here, ignorant forever now. Change and grow toward a better now. Escape is over for the ever now. Survive this will no one, will no one. The reason why may not be found. Searching my confusion. Tell me why I can't be found. Help to abide illusion. Stay here, hoping you were never found. Change and grow toward a better now. Face it, uplift to the level now. Survivors will no one, will no one. The reason why may not be found. Searching my confusion. Tell me why I can't be found and help to decide. Break me, hold me, I don't feel safe. No, I don't feel like no one's gonna save us. Are we all the same way inside? Feel go my Break me, hold me, I don't feel safe. No, I don't feel like no one's gonna Don't tell me it's gonna be alright. I've said lately that I want, I've said lately that I want, I've said lately that I want. I've said lately that I want.
All right, this must be a challenge at home to keep track of all this. There's a lot of different gear being compared, but I just got so many ideas about what can be compared, I couldn't help myself. So what did you guys think there? So I kind of think that everything I've said is still holding up. I'm not, even after listening to that track and trying to pay even more mind to those discrepancies or differences or similarities, whatever, that I've been noting, I'm not noticing anything that's profoundly different. The Olina still sounds similar-ish to the T3 Plus in terms of general enjoyment and general taste. There might be very specific things that are different. I think the Olina is just ever so slightly a little bit more, I don't want to say thinned out compared to the T3 Plus, but a little more, gosh, like it doesn't have as much of that something in the low end or something is happening where it sounds just a little lighter on its feet, if that makes sense, I guess. The Yume Midnight is still trying to be its own distant sound that doesn't sound like anything else. It's definitely kind of unique there. I'm still not sure how I fall on the Yume Midnight. I'm just not sure if I love it or if I'm just like, okay, about it. I just don't. I'm somewhere in between those two, and I just need to listen to them more to be sure. The Lea is still sounding like something's wrong with it. No surprise. The Melee is interesting. I think it sounds just a little bit more engaging, for lack of a better word, than the Olina in some instances. I think I actually might prefer the Melee over the Olina if I were to compare like two BGGAR tuned sets. But it's really, they're really different. Like, he went out of his way, it sounds like, to make two different sounding pieces of gear. And I think it's just going to be down to personal preference. Do you like the lusciousness of the Melee, or do you like the brightness on it, light on its feet? I wouldn't call it bright, but a little more balanced sounding compared to the Melee. The Olina is a little bit more balanced, the Olina. The Obsidian is still rocking it. The Oxygen is still super warm, and I'm not as into it. And the Mest is still the rock star of the show, just stealing it after everyone gets presented. And it's so weird. If I never played the Mest, you would have walked away thinking any one of those other things could have sounded like a very happy set to buy. But the Mest just ruins things. I should really stop showing them. But I like the reference point. Okay, next is something I've been doing lately that I think is very interesting, which is to zone in on one particular segment and then just loop it on each set and see how it sounds, the same exact moment. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, that was just a fun, short little bit to kind of quickly glance at each one and see, again, refresh ourselves what each difference is or similarity. So I kind of think there that the Midnight showed its weaknesses a little bit for that type of music. Even that short little bit, you could hear that pop of excitement that's supposed to hit in that track. If you know that track, it intentionally goes, the artists intentionally go from a muffle sound in the master to a clear, bright, rocking, clear drum hit sound after it. There's that one breaking moment from that negative muffled space to that positive, open, clear space. And the Midnight didn't really show that off to that flavor and degree that I like to get from that track personally. It's those kind of personal experiences that you're going to have to, the only best way you can explore it is with your own library, with your own ears. And this video is just an attempt to get us as close we can to kind of like help you triangulate those familiar feelings that you might get in your tracks. And if you're looking for that pop of excitement, I think we're starting to hear the Midnight is not for you. The Midnight is not for somebody looking for excitement. The Midnight is a person looking to lay back with a long night of work or gaming or something and just relax. They are really a great relaxing set that we don't see a lot of under $200. My preferred relaxing set is the Dunu SA6, but that's much more expensive. I don't remember if it was 400, 500, 600. It was multiple hundreds. So for this price point, the Midnight is not a bad choice at all. There's not a lot of competition that I've liked a lot that attempt to do that smooth signature. So props to Critical for making that, honestly. Still don't know, because I personally like to go for more exciting stuff, so I don't know if I'm going for that yet again, but I can notice where it's strong in, and I can notice for you guys what you might want to look for in your next purchase. If you're looking for smooth, Midnight might be your pick. Not for me personally yet. The Olina and the T3 Plus are still neck and neck. It's really kind of hard to say one is clearly better than the other. It's but they're very similarly priced, 100 versus 70. You might like the look of one over the other. You might like BGGAR's general style and taste, and you might want to venture to trust his tuning on this one if you had to pick between the T3 Plus and his. Or just listen to the demo again and see if you can notice something that I didn't mention yet. I have to think about that myself, which one I prefer. Again, the Lea continues to be a joke because I have a broken set or something. The Melee has a thicker punch to its drum hits than the Olina or the T3 Plus. You might like that more rounded, lush sound behind those hits, and if that's the case, then just stick with the Melee. But I could definitely see how somebody wants that extra additional spice or pop of the T3 Plus and the Olina. I personally do lean towards the T3 Plus in my personal listening experiences for my own personal tastes. But I can definitely recognize where the Melee could be someone else's favorite. The Obsidian for $160 though is so close to everything else in terms of pricing, and yet it just pops and has impact with such authority that it's like, how can you not consider getting it? Like, it's just, I'm starting to become a salesman for Ikko, even though they've never sponsored me and never given, and they didn't give me my OH10. I bought that with the Patreon support money and my own money or something. That wasn't a freebie. It really is interesting. My favorites are all the things that I've spent my own money on, for whatever reason that is. I don't know. Maybe the biggest bias for audio reviewers is for the things they put their own dollar into because it's more valuable to them. Ah, that's interesting. I don't know if that's true, but it's a good theory. All right, everybody. I'm going to give you one more track to listen to on your own. This is going to be my final words to you before it plays. Thank you for watching. Please consider commenting, liking, subscribing, all of that. If you really like the cut of my jib, so to speak, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really allows me to extend myself to gear that these partners and sponsors or whatever may not necessarily offer to send me. It really allows me to go outside the box to the things that I really want to hit. So please consider supporting me. It really helps the channel, and I do a free giveaway once a month. You only have to pay for shipping, though, if you win. But that's all I have to say. Good luck listening to the next track. Feel free to go back through the video and listen on your own time, and I look forward to seeing your comments in the comment section. See ya.
Don't go changing to try and please me. You never let me down before. Don't imagine you're too familiar, and I don't see you anymore. I would not leave you in times of trouble. We never could have come this far. I took the good times, I'll take the bad times. I take you just some new fashion. Don't change the color of your hair. You always have my unspoken passion. Although I might not seem to care, I don't want clever conversation. Never want to work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I want you just the way you are. Need to know that you will always be the same old someone that I knew. Oh, what will it take till you believe in me the way that I believe in you? I said I love you, that's forever. This I promise from the heart. I couldn't love you any better. I love you just the